Okay. Thanks, Queen. It's fine. I'm not offended, right? Like, the things that I make them to be enjoyed, not to create social obligation for other people, right? So stay as long as you like. And if you find yourself bored, leave. Eating a late lunch. What part of the world are you in? I'm quiet today. Do I have a busy day today? Yeah, I need to call a tax attorney, and you stick around for my life. You're really sweet, Queen. I have to call a tax attorney to figure out tax situation for the commune, and I have to read some exit reports for my university job. So not a very exciting day today, but it's a day. I've got work. I'm gonna do it. So it goes. Good morning from the forests and the mountains of New York State. I'm glad I reached you all the way on the other side of the world. That's pretty special. Shema Yisrael Asher Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. Vahafta et anat Elohecha ובכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודייך וחיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך בחיה כי ואחר אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר נשבע לאבותיך לאברהם ליצחק וליעקב לתת לך ערים גדולות וטובות אשר לא בנית ובתים מלאים כל טובה אשר למילאת וברות הצבים אשר לא עשת כערים וזיתים אשר לא נתת והלכת ושבעת ישמר לך פן תשכח את ירא אשר תשערך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. So the words are in Hebrew. We can translate them. The first words go, Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Listen, Israel. Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad are one. All of these gods, all these various names, the northern Semitic gods, the southern Semitic gods, the Israelite gods, the Judean gods, the Babylonian gods, the Egyptian gods, the Greek gods, they're all one God. Right? Because if you try to summarize all that is coherently and consistently, you have to come up with a new label for it. You might as well say it's all the same thing. Because if you say that it's made of different things, then you can summarize that and be like, well, those different things are, they actually can be categorized together in some sense, right? Logic. I don't know. Monotheism comes in many flavors, and it's evolved for thousands of years. So the monotheism that I am explaining to you today is informed by certain modern sensibilities that were not around when those words were first put to parchment. Yet nonetheless I repeat those words, even if they mean something different to me than they meant to the original scribes. Shalom. How are you doing? It's nice to have you here. It's nice to see those characters in the chat. Then the prayer continues. Vahafta, and you shall love. And you shall love Yahweh Eloheinu with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And these words that I'm repeating to you today, teach them to your children. And recite them when you're at home and when you are away. And when you are getting up in the morning. When you go to bed at night. And you shall inscribe them as a symbol on your hand and let them serve as a sign on your forehead. And bind them to your doorposts and on your gates. Repeat, 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 repeat. Repeat the repetitions. Repeat them. Repeat, repeat. And maybe one day you'll understand. You'll experience. Maybe one day you'll experience totality with all. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe that's not up to us to do. Good morning, Echo. It's been quite some time. How are you? It's really nice to see you here. I'm glad you're still around. Why do I say the word Yahweh? I understand that you might find that very offensive. I say it because I both want to connect to the root of the tradition and the root beneath the root, and I also don't want to necessarily adhere to modern practices that in some sense hurt me, right? Like, I try to remind myself that Yahweh was a storm god, one of many, right? Yahweh was the spouse of Asherah here, right? And I recognize the theological significance of not saying his name, right? Like Voldemort, we don't say Voldemort's name either, right? Like there are reasons you can make a word sacred by removing it from common discourse. And I'm explicitly trying to not do that, right? I'm trying to place the character of Yahweh in a historical context, and I'm trying to make my understanding of that God to not be monotheistic, but to rather recognize the historical framework that he came out of, right? And if we want to talk about some like abstract version of divinity, some like omniscient infinite thing, then I wouldn't use the word Yahweh for it. I mean, sure, I believe in monotheism too, right? Or like, I certainly have a framework that says that all things come from the same source, but I wouldn't call that source Adonai, and I wouldn't call that source Yahweh, right? I think Adonai and Yahweh are characters that come from a particular cultural tradition. They come from a cultural tradition that I happen to be a part of, right? But nonetheless, they come from that tradition, and if I want to actually symbolize Godhead, right? Symbolize the infinite, symbolize like the totality of all. I'm not going to use a word with such strong and specific historical context and baggage, because I would want my concept of divinity to be transcultural, right? Beyond culture. And so I use the language that I have available to me, right? I'll use terms like infinite or all, or oneness. These are English words that don't necessarily have like a numinous, sacred flavor to them. But I'll use them when I want to refer specifically to that, and I'll use the word Yahweh when I want to refer specifically to the idea of an Abrahamic jealous God, right? And so I can say the Shema, I can say Yahweh Eloheinu Yahweh Echad, right? And when I say that, I'm largely making a cultural claim, right? That 2,500 years ago, there were priests in the kingdom of Judah who decided to complete the fusion of Yahweh and El that had been happening for hundreds of years at that point, right? I think the evolutionary history of our tradition is extremely important, and I do think that evolutionary history does produce some of the more abstract ideas about monotheism that we are taught today, right? That's sort of informed by the Enlightenment and other philosophical trends. But yeah, I think context is important. So, anyway, perhaps that was more than some of you cared to hear, or maybe you've all heard it before 100 times. I've said that little speech easily 100 times. And here we are. Hey, pretty lady back. How are you doing today, Sarah? You at work today? So, are just different Adonai and El names for the same God? Well, yes. I mean, that is the way that it is taught in modern Judaism, right? That El and Adonai are both names for something that is ineffable, right? And we can use other names like Hashem. And that's true, right? That is the modern interpretation. And I guess I try to remind myself and remind other people in the stream that there were also ancient interpretations, and there was a time in the distant past when El and Yahweh were treated as separate deities. And in that time, the word Adonai was not used for Yahweh. The word Adonai meant something else completely, right? So there's linguistic history, there's cultural history here, and I think that history is important to know, because it informs the way that I experience the divine today in my current modern life, right? Pay attention to the past because it informs the present. And with that, we're going to read some stories about some other gods, right? We're in the middle of reading Atrahasis. So Atrahasis is a Noah figure, but of course his name is Atrahasis, not Noah. And he comes from tablets that were found in eastern Mesopotamia, in what was once Babylon, or Assyria, right? Like, I don't actually know the specific age of this story, which empire it was written under. It doesn't really matter. But here we have a story about punishing gods who can't get enough sleep. And so they create humans, and then they kill them. And we've been reading this repetitive sequence about drought, over and over, drought. And, but now the drought's going to end. The drought's going to end right now. How many of you were here yesterday and I was just bemoaning, like, God, I've just read this so many times. It's a drought, it's a drought, it's a drought. Well, finally the drought's going to end. Here we go. You ready? Eliel convened a congress, speaking to his children, the gods. Adad caused his rain to pour down in buckets abundantly. So streaming water, plentiful throughout the meadowland, clouds were so numerous that they nearly blotted out the sky. They must not feed on Nisaba's grain, the comfort of man. The god sat, beset with nerves, troubled, there in the congress. Enki sat, beset with nerves, troubled, there in the congress. There's a great amount of tension between Enki and Enlil. The warrior Enlil was aware that this breach was done by Enki, and that the other gods had repealed what they had decided. And he was stomping mad from his elevated ire at the Igigi. Every one of us, of the great Anuna, consented to do this. The heavens were to be firmly secured by Anu and Adad, while I was responsible for securing the earth down below. And likewise, when Enki had arrived at his assigned place, he was going to release the bonds and bring us liberation. You were going to serve us and abundance to the people. You were supposed to take charge and manage the scales. Eliel raised his voice to be heard, saying to his officer Nuxu, "Go and gather 50 of Lahamu men, here on my orders. Go and fetch them so they are standing here in front of me." And so 50 Lahamu men were brought together on his orders. Then the chief warrior Eliel spoke to Lahamu men, saying, "Every one of us, the great Anuna, consented to do this. The heavens were to be firmly secured by Anu and Adad, while I was responsible for securing the earth down below. And likewise, when Enki had arrived at his assigned place, he was going to release the bonds and bring us liberation. You were going to serve up in abundance to the people. You were supposed to take charge and manage the scales." But Eliel had to put up with all of the loud clamor and clatter. So Eliel the warrior raised his voice to be heard to the gods. I am just as greatly annoyed by the racket that they make, and yet I am unable to sleep from all their clamor and clatter. Yes, there's finally water, Dr. Punk. Finally. Thus, let us make it so the humans will be denied their food. Make it so that there is not enough corn to fill their stomachs. And make it so that a God in heaven will hold back his rains. So the gods here, they can't make up their minds. There are some gods that want there to be rain, and there are some gods that don't. And, they're not of one mind. They change their minds all the time. It's a little frustrating. And make it so that a God in heaven will hold back his rains. Beneath will he act to assure waters do not gush from springs, so that the farmer's fields no longer produce in abundance. Let Nishaba hold back the nourishing flow from her breasts, so the black soil of the countryside becomes blanched white, so the landscape everywhere is encrusted with a salty dust. Let the earth deny her succor, so nothing grows, not even grain. Make it so the people are plagued with a horrible disease. Constrict the birth channel so as to deny prosperous birth. All right, again, after a little pause, again, we're back into the drought. Thus they made it so the humans would be denied their food, making it so that there was not enough corn to fill their stomachs. Made it so that a God in heaven would hold back his rains. Beneath he acted to assure waters did not gush from springs, so that the farmer's fields no longer produced in abundance. And Nishaba held back the nourishing flow from her breasts. So the black soil of the countryside became blanched white, so the landscape everywhere lay encrusted with salty dust. And earth denied her succor, so nothing grew, not even grain. Made it so the people were plagued by horrible disease, constricting the birth canal so as to deny a prosperous birth. Ea, with his Lahamu men, were watchful at the bolt of the sea. On high, Adad made it so that his rains were in short supply. Below, subterranean waters no longer gushed from springs, so that a farmer's field no longer produced in abundance, and Nisaba held back the nourishing flow from her breasts. I was so optimistic when we started reading today. I was like, oh man, we're finally going to get to the flood. There's water. But no, it was just a tiny little break. The gods changed their mind briefly, and then they reprimanded one another, and then they're back to drought. But we only have one more page in this tablet, and then there will be a different section of the story. I promise you, it won't be so repetitive. But as for today, by the end of the day, we're still in drought. We're still in drought. The gods cannot make up their minds, and they're punishing the people as they have since people invented these stories. And with that, we will move on to Arati. But I will be back here. Actually, I can't stream tomorrow. I have a meeting tomorrow morning very early. But on Thursday, we will return. Oh, my rice is ready. On Thursday, we will return, and we will finish Tablet 2 of Atrahasis. So now it's time for Arati. Fire time. Fire time, then grief time. Dr. Punk, I really like the way you describe what we do here. It's very simple. It's good. So. What time on Thursday? This time on Thursday, roughly. I always try to stream a little bit earlier. Like, I would love to be streaming by 9 a.m. Eastern, but usually I'm not streaming till 10 or 10:30, right? Your terrible anxiety, you want to know what happens? All the people will die eventually, in a terrible flood, except Atrahasis. There, I spoiled it for you. Unless your anxiety is about something else. I don't actually know what that comment means. Yeah, I tend to stream around this time, right? Like, I'm not completely consistent. Right, sometimes it's a little early in the morning, sometimes it's a little bit later, but usually it's right around now. 'Cause I do have a rhythm. So. Jaya Jaya Arati Vina Vinayaka Vina Vinayaka Shri Ganesha Jaya Jaya Arati Subramanya Subramanya Kartikeya Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Venugopala Venuola Papa Vidura Navanita Chora Jaya Jaya Arati Venkantaramana Venkantaramana Sankataharana Sitarama Radhe Shama Jaya Jaya Arati Gauri Manohara Bhavani Sankara Samba Sadashiva Uma Maheshwara Jaya Jaya Arati Raja Rajeshwari Tripura Sundari Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati Mahakali Mahashakti Jaya Jaya Arati Anjaneya Hanumanta Jaya Jaya Arati Dattatreya Trimurti Vatara Jaya Jaya Arati Adityaya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Arati Sanistaraya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Arati Sankaracaya Advaita Guravi Jaya Jaya Arati Sadgurunata Shivananda Jaya Jaya Arati Vishnu Devananda Jaya Jaya Arati Agastya Munaye Shirama Priyaye Jaya Jaya Arati Ayappa Swamine Dharma Shastave Jaya Jaya Arati Jesus Gurave Moses Gurave Buddha Gurave Jaya Jaya Arati Muhammad Gurave Guru Nanak Gurave Samastya Gurubho Namaha Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Natatra Suyobati Natandrakaratam Nima Vidyobati Kutoy Magni Twameva Bantamanamandi Sarvam Tasya Basya Samidam Vivanti Om Gange Kayamane Kaiva Govari Saraswati Narmade Siddhikaveri Namastitam Namo Namaha Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Bandisha Saka Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Kayena Vacha Manasendriyarva Buddhyatmanava Prakriti Sabhavad Karomi Adyad Mangalam Parasmahe Narayana iti sarmar payami Savadharmam prapichaya mamikam sarvanamrja Aham sva sarva papayo mokshayami masucha. Whatever actions I perform with my body, speech, mind, senses, my nature, my intellect, or my emotions, all these I dedicate to you. Thank you so much for being here. Even the ambiguous trolls. I'm not quite sure you're a troll, Ndi Sabur. But you know, as much as I wish, and truly, I genuinely wish sometimes that I had the body and the social charisma, the social affect of an American pop star. I don't. I'm just myself, right? Dysphoria and all. And it's okay. Dr. Punk, what do you know I do on Saturdays? So, now it's grief time. Now it's time for Kaddish. Right, so I like to close with Kaddish because it's the most social prayer that I know, right? Like, there's like I was at an online funeral for a member of a trans community that I'm a part of a week ago, and I said Kaddish for her, and you know there were people there who were like, oh wow, Like, I haven't heard that prayer in years, but I know what it means, right? Like, Kaddish is a way for us all to connect to loss, right? The words are simple. The words actually don't have anything to do with loss. If you read an English translation, but they've become socially coded to refer to grief, to refer to loss, and we say them together, and we make the meaning of the words something different than what they literally mean. Yes, it just got sad. I close every stream on a sad note, because life is sad. Life is sad, and it it's easy to be chronically depressed. But we can be sad together, right? Like, the way that I think we can process grief is by recognizing that it is something that we all experience, right? There's a kind of solidarity to it. And so we say these words together to remind ourselves what we have lost. So if there's anything that you were mourning, anything that you were grieving, hold that in your mouth today. Here's where you mean to say R.I.P. to your anxiety. Yes. Yes, let's let go of our anxieties. Let go of our griefs. It's grief time. Dr. Punk, your affect is just so great. Yeah, so we can let go of what we are grieving together with these words. Yid Kadal, Yid Kadash, Shema Rabbah. Bialma Divrach Yute Viamlich Mal Chute, Bachayachon, Vyomechon, Vchayede Kolbe Israel, Bagalav Isman Kari Vimru. Amen. Yehe Shema Rabbah Mivarach Lialam, Omei, Omaya, Yid Barach, Vishtabach, Vit Baar, Virmam, Vit Nase, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal Shema, de Kudishar, Barichu, Leila Min Kolber Chatabashir Tatush Bechatab, Nechemata, Jamiran Biama, Vimru. Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'chol Yisrael Vimru. Amen. O Se Shalom Vimru Huya Ase Shalom Aleinu V'chol Yisrael Vimru. Amen. O Se Shalom Vimru Huya Ase Shalom Aleinu V'chol Yisrael Vimru Vimru. Amen. And with that, we conclude prayers. I am going to have breakfast with you all today. I did make some rice, and I'm feeling a little bit hungry. I haven't been eating with you nearly so much, but today's a good day to do it. So if you'll give me just a second, I'll go get the rice, and then we can have a snack together. Okay, I'll be right back. Hi. Will you eat breakfast with me with my friends on the internet? I just promised them that I would do that. What you got? Oh, wow. Eggs?
Egg with enough tomato soup on it.
Huh. And it looks like chicken.
To be flavorful. And lettuce and a sip.
And a sip. How was your meeting?
Okay. Are you on?
Yeah, I'm live.
Oh, okay. Great.
I just promised them that I would come back with rice. And Sarah said, heart, heart, heart. Cat, cat, cat. Hi, Freedom.
Where's the cat?
There. Oh, where's Mama Cat?
Yeah, not
she's in, Peach's room.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I did say I'll remember.
Yeah, you said you wouldn't be here today because you had, you had something important. I forget what you said it was. But thanks for coming by to say hi.
Yeah, this really does look like chicken. But
it does. Not. Well, it used to be chicken.
Yeah, actually. Or it never was chicken.
Or it never was chicken. It depends on when you start the clock.
Yeah. There's chicken stock involved. And eggs.
Yeah. Good morning, legalized love.
She is a precious being. You're correct. Good job.
Can I show them you?
Yeah, this is messy.
Ooh, there's my friend.
Hello. I really need a towel.
You need a towel? Hey, look. You want a clean one?
Yeah.
That one's covered in ashes mostly.
Yeah, I don't really want ashes on me.
This one's clean.
It's covered in your hair.
Well, it's because there's... Fine.
Because it's your bed.
Yeah. Here.
They're all covered in your hair. I'm still going to use it. It's fine. I'm just saying. It's just all the curly keys on it. Okay, there we go.
What is my favorite meal? Rice and kale and some dead animal in roughly equal proportions, but a little bit more kale than the dead animal. Mm-hmm. And fruit.
She's very particular.
Sometimes I'm embarrassed by how particular I am because people cook for me and I'm just like, meh. And I don't want to be like that. I want to be very grateful because they spent like hours slaving away in the kitchen. But I'm like, I could have done a much better job in a third of the time. And
well, you know how your body responds to things.
Yeah.
So.
I like dead pigs too, Sarah. Oh no. I didn't add enough water to the rice.
Uh-oh.
Brown rice needs more water than other grains.
Uh-huh.
You like bread and beer?
That's not a good meal for you.
No, it would be a terrible meal for me. Did you know that ancient bread and ancient beer were not so different than one another? Like, one was just wetter, basically.
And alcoholic. They're pretty different.
Mm-hmm.
But the same process, just longer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, like, the Egyptians didn't have, like, Budweiser super light beer, right?
No.
Like, when they made beer, it was like... It was like
grain
soup.
stuff.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like fermented grain soup. We all have different taste buds. It's true. If I had your taste buds, I would have an identity crisis. Be like, how did this person's tongue get in my mouth? I didn't consent to that. I drink alcohol occasionally, but bodies respond to intoxicants in different ways. And there's this thing, like, I got as close to drunk as I ever get about 2 weeks ago. I was at, like, a funeral reception. A whole loaf and you're sleeping in the street. And, like, so I can get, like, a buzz or something like that if I drink one glass of wine very quickly. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'm rarely in a social situation like this where I can just get drunk. I'll drink another one. And the problem is I drink the second glass of wine, I don't get any drunker, I just get a headache, and then I stop drinking. Right? So, like, my body, like, does the order of operations of alcohol experiences differently than most people. So I get the...
You get hungover immediately?
Yeah, I start to feel ill before I start to feel good. So I don't drink very much.
Fine.
Yeah, it's fine, but I think, like, I think it's physiological. I don't think it's cultural. Like, I think if my body responded to it differently, I would drink more.
Literally same.
Yeah. You're hungover in Seattle, and you need to present at a conference today. Well, it sounds like you're having a great time. Well, you're not normally in Seattle. You don't live in Seattle, right? You're on a business trip. If you get drunk on a business trip, that means, like, something's going right. Or maybe not. Good morning, Julian. How are you? Like, sometimes I wish my body responded differently to marijuana, right? Like, then I wouldn't like it so much.
It's okay to like things.
I suppose. Yes, we still have goats. We have 3 goats. Try the gummies instead. I don't think that would solve my dilemma.
No.
We do not live off-grid. Nope. There are power lines that run through our property, crisscross it, I dream about permanently electrifying my students' campsite. This is Rachel.
Hi. Did you post the tomato video yet?
No, I'm not going to post it until we publish the Seed documentary, because it's a trailer for the Seed documentary.
Got it. What do you think about off-grid living?
It's stupid.
I wondered how honest you were going to be. I thought you might say something like, if you want to do it, good for you.
I mean, it's stupid for me, right? Like, I think about those Bedouins that, like, the Israeli government rounded up and like, made to force them to camp outside of Ramallah on those, like, platforms that they built, and, like, maybe they gave them electrical hookups. Like, I think that there are ways of life.
Or they blacked them out all the time.
Yeah. I don't think living off-grid is aligned with my goals as a human being to, like, you know, make art and communicate with as many people as I possibly can, as efficiently as I can. It's probably spam. Like, I think if you're gonna live off-grid, you have to be committed to, like, being in the present moment and, like, interacting with your physical environment as, like, your whole reality.
Yeah.
In a way that I like being an internet creature. I like being in your brain. And if I were off-grid, I couldn't be in your brain.
Because you'd be spending all of your time chopping wood.
Yeah.
And heating water on the stove for your rice.
Yeah.
I mean, you can live off-grid with appliances, like, depending on what your setup is.
Yeah, sure. Like,
But you'd have to dedicate a lot of energy to figuring out what the setup is. And
there's off-grid living where, like,
and
you have a fancy tech job and you buy a ton of solar panels and a satellite internet feed, but, like, that's just saying, like, that's not, there's off-grid, like, separated from society, and there's off-grid, like, oh, I want to use sustainable technology. Yeah. Like, I would live off-grid in the second sense, but...
money.
Yeah.
Well, and then...
That's off-grid cheating? Right, so off-grid means low-tech. High-tech off-grid doesn't count.
It's different.
Well, because you still are relying on, like, factories in Taiwan to produce all your tech. Right? You're not actually separated from living from, like, the human social system. You're just...
Self-reliance and self-sufficiency are such bullshit.
Yeah,
terms.
you're just wireless.
Like, I get that there are degrees of things, but, like, it's not set. Like, you're dependent on...
You're always dependent on...
You're always dependent.
I'm dependent on you. Very much.
Well, sure, but, like... You're also dependent on, like... the CEO of Samsung.
I am dependent on the CEO of Samsung. I bet he's an asshole.
I bet he's a he.
Yeah. I had new windows put in yesterday to keep out the off-grid. What does that mean? Is that a joke? I didn't get it. You're dependent on your husband, food, water, air conditioning. Yes, many things. There's never been a truly autonomous person ever in the history of people. There's never been a truly autonomous chimpanzee or bonobo or, like, anything. Yes, I've heard of Workaway. We get Workaways here sometimes. Not recently.
Can I have it?
A sip?
Yeah.
You put it over there. I'm gonna drink it first.
That's why I put it over there. I'll put it over there for you.
Thanks.
Do you want to show them the tomatoes?
Sure. Here are some tomatoes. We saved some seeds from some tomatoes, and I made a video about it that I'll be publishing when I publish the big seed saving documentary. And then I planted these tomatoes, even though it's middle of September, and they're going to die. They're never going to make tomatoes. They're never going to live up to their true potential as tomato-bearing plants. Instead, they're just an example.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like unreasonably sad about planting these tomatoes off season. Like,
Aww.
I don't. Like, I did it, right? Like, I don't regret it, but I look at them.
I'm glad you did it because now I can see that, like, it was successful.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to do it again with a different batch, and I might use that same pot. I might just pull those out and plant 10 seeds in it.
Okay. Sure.
I don't think you've depleted all the nutrients. Hey, did you know we're nice to each other?
Yeah, Legalized Love thinks that we're nice to each other.
That's sweet.
And respectful, too, and kind.
Yeah.
Get a grow lamp. I would need much more than a grow lamp to bring those tomatoes to fruit.
Yeah.
I'd need, like, a building.
Certainly need a bigger pot.
And a bigger pot, yeah.
A bigger pot and a grow lamp. And a way to stake it.
And an insulated
easy.
room.
Your room is hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if I wanted to have like a garden over there, I could.
You'd get fungus gnats, but like
Yeah.
it'd be okay.
But then I
Or
couldn't
white
have a
flies.
film studio over there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could shoot time lapses. I could put a big pot there and a grow lamp and.
Yeah.
But I could make it work, but I don't want to.
Right, you don't want to put in that time.
I've got plenty of tomatoes. She grows them for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have more tomatoes than I could ever want.
It's true. You don't really want canned tomato product.
No, I don't. Other people do though, because they like tomato
You'll
soup.
take the hot pack stuff.
Mhm.
No? Yeah. We've learned how to be nice to each other.
Yeah, we're not always nice to each other. Even when we're mean to each other, we're pretty nice to each other.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever yelled at each other.
No, we have.
Okay.
But you asked me to yell at you.
Oh.
You literally asked me to yell at you.
Rachel is visiting the live stream, but she's not visiting, like...
No, I live here.
Yeah.
I lived here before Teresa, and I told Teresa to live here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think it's time to go. We've known each other for 12 years?
Yep.
It's a long time.
We met in February of 2011, in college when I visited the co-op that she was living at because I wanted to not live in a dorm anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave me a tour of the house.
Yeah.
And
then promptly forgot.
I was like, wow, you're going to be my wife. That's not at all what happened.
I wasn't a girl, so...
I was like, this person is weird and nice.
Anyway, we should go.
Yeah. Not vegan. Definitely not vegan.
Yeah. It was lovely to hang out with you and have breakfast. And I will see you on Thursday, and we can say some words again. Okay, bye.
Bye.